In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful. This was the topic that was the topics that were discussed on 17th July Friday were stimulus, reflex action, reflex pathway, and the types of the reflexes, that is spinal reflex and cranial reflex. So let's move to the topic. What is a stimulus? Stimulus is any change in an organism's environment that causes the organism to react. So in short, I can say that is the cause of doing anything. This could be anything. Stimulus can be anything. It depends on the location as well. So the stimulus is an event or a condition that initiates a response. And what is a response? A response is the reaction to stimulus, to specific stimulus. Stimulus can be change in the environment. Any change in the environment, hotness, coldness, that is also the change in the environment. It is, and what is a response? It is an organism reaction to stimulus. So as for example, I have a stimulus, a car horn. Okay? This was detected by my ear and I move aside by hearing car horn. That was my response. The stimulus was the car horn and response was the moving, was me moving aside. On your screen there is another example. An animal is cold. This cold is the stimulus, so it moves into the light, and moving into the light is the response. It seems very easy, but there is a long process that is going inside your body to just give a response. So there is a pathway between stimulus and response, and we're going to learn about that. If you see on your screen, there is a glass of water above the heading of stimulus, and then the eye is the receptor. So my eye washed a glass of water and I want to drink it. So this glass of water is a stimulus for me. My eyes receive this information, so they are the receptors. Whoever is receiving this information, whoever is receiving this stimulus is the receptor. The receiving one is the receptor. You just keep that in your mind. So stimulus is then to the receptor. Stimulus is the action, right? Then receptors, they are receiving the information. Then comes the sensory neuron. Sensory neuron, they are the type of the neuron. Neurons are the cells of the nervous system. And what are the sensory neuron? They are the type of the neuron that deliver information to the CNS. Now what is CNS? CNS is the central nervous system. It is made up of two things. Spinal cord, जो आपकी मोहरों में होती है, ठीक है, that is a spinal cord. जो मोहरों के अंदर एक fluid मौजूद है, which we called as a spinal cord. And this brain, they both constitute the CNS, central nervous system. So we are just talking about CNS here in this picture, so I am just going to keep that here, keep that to the brain. Then this sensory neuron passes the information that was given to it by the receptor to the motor neuron. Motor neuron, what are these kind of neurons? They distribute commands to the effector. They distribute commands or impulses or orders from the CNS or the spinal cord. CNS is spinal cord or brain to the effector. Effectors are the one that gives the response. So so in short, this pathway is like this. The stimulus was the water. It was perceived by my eye, which was the receptor. Then it was conveyed to the sensory neuron, those who carries information to the CNS. Then CNS give response by mean of motor neuron. They are the one that gives command or order or impulses to the effectors. Effectors are the muscles, and the response is drinking water. So this is a complete pathway between a stimulus and a response. There's another diagram on your screen which is saying there's a stimulus, then the receptor. What are the receptor? All the sense organs are the receptors. Your eyes, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ear, your skin. They are all the receptors. Sensory neuron, the one that gives information to the CNS. CNS then passes this to the motor neuron, and from motor they are to the effectors. Effector can be muscles or organ, and as a result we give the response. Okay, so if you are thinking that only human have this complex system in their body in which they have to receive stimulus, then it completes a long pathway and come back as a response, that's not true. Plants also responds to the stimulus. If you see this plant is known as Mimosa pudica. In Urdu we call it chui mui. I haven't seen it in my life, but I've heard about it a lot. Oh, I actually have seen it in in a botany lab, but I haven't touched it because it was in a glass jar to protect from the student. Anyway, so this plant responds to touch stimuli. So if you touch it, it closes its leaves. There is another response you might have seen in the sunflower. The sunflower moves towards the sun. That's the another stimuli, that it moves towards the light. Okay. So this is the receptor cell, the same cell that receives the stimuli as light or heat. Now we know more than this definition. And activates an associated nerve to send a message to the brain or spinal cord, CNS. We're talking about CNS here. And that may be grouped into a sense organ as a taste bud receptor. So they are talking about effectors here. Now a new topic, that is reflex action. So the reflex action, or simply just I can say it, reflex, is involuntary, it's instantaneous, and it's protective in nature. These three features in an action is reflex action. But the most important thing about reflex action is they are innate in behavior. Now what is an innate? Innate is something that is built in you from the beginning. And the day you are born till the day you die, this response is within you. It's learned. It's not a learned process. It will remain with you all the time. So the reflex action is innate behavior. For example, if I talk about the ducklings, they once they come out of the egg, they can walk. Nobody told them to walk. Nobody taught them to walk, but still they can do that. Similarly, as if we talk about a human baby, he starts crying without learning it. So this is also an innate response, okay, which is built in you. So reflex are the automatic, involuntary, which is subconscious response to change within or outside the body. Okay, so reflex also carry out automatic actions of sneezing, coughing, and vomiting. And reflexes can also helps you to maintain posture and balance. So this is the person who is you can see as a reflex, having a reflex. He has the source of heat, which is a stimulus. Now we know it. His fingers are the receptors. We now know it, and this goes through the dash neuron. Think about it. Which neuron? I'll answer it after the completion of this day. This information from the receptor goes through dash neuron, goes to the CNS. CNS can be brain or spinal cord. I'll tell you why it's going to spinal cord. Then it goes to the spinal cord and comes back via dash neuron to the effector cells. Effectors are the muscles here, and his response will be withdrawing his hands. So this is the same thing, but here this is happening to protect himself without him being noticing the action. And this is instantaneous reaction and innate behavior. So that is why this is a reflex action. If the action is protecting you subconsciously without being learned from anyone, that is innate in your body, built in your body, then I'll call it reflex action. For example, you withdraw your hand without you consciously noticing it, then I'm withdrawing my hand from a heated object. So that is what we call a reflex action. So this is the reflex action, and the neuron that were carrying the information from the receptors were the sensory neuron, and those who were coming back from the CNS were the motor neuron. This is another example here. So just see these. This is stimulus, this is receptors, then sensory neuron, CNS, relay neuron, motor neuron, effectors, withdrawal of hand, that is the response. So this pathway of reflex action is known as reflex arc. Reflex arc is the pathway traveled by the nerve impulse during a reflex. Most reflexes are spinal reflex with pathways that transfer only to spinal cord. This is something very new to us. For example, if you are in a hurry and you want to save your body, I'm talking about the reflex action right now. There was some heated object, and my hand was on it. I would draw my hand. So this response has to be very instantaneous, and I cannot rely on my brain, because it will be a very long pathway for the impulses to go to the brain, then coming back to the effector, then giving a response. It will be a very long pathway. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us with the spinal cord. My hand is closer to the spinal cord, so all this information will